All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I was trying to decide if we were all in the same time zone. We are. My name is Tara Ho. I am your customer education manager at Thomson Reuters. I'm a licensed attorney in California. I'm also located in Southern California. My job is to support you in your learning journey with Thomson Reuters solutions. And so by doing that, I lead training sessions, webinars, onboarding programs, a bunch of different ways to ensure that you and your team know how to use our tools effectively and efficiently. So my goal is to empower you with the knowledge here of how to use our tools and give you skills to get your work done faster and smarter, and of course with greater confidence. So I'm not going to bore you with a ton of slides. This is really just going to be an intro to the platform, and then we're going to go live for most of the rest of class. If you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat, or you can come off of mute. No problem. I'm going to pause along the way and see if anyone has any questions, but you can always throw them in the chat and I'll try and pay attention. Okay, so our agenda today, probably not in any particular order. And I can tell I'm going to add one more thing in there, but we're going to learn how to navigate Westlaw Advantage. All right, so pretty big change in platforms for y'all. We're going to talk about deep research and how to use the AI tools to do deep research. We're going to look at a couple other ways, including precision searching. We're going to look for negative treatment and KeyCite flags. And then in order to, find the best cases, we're going to look at cases that are cited with, so with citing proximity, the precision searching that will give you more cases like this, including how to use fact patterns to find more cases that are on point. And we're also going to use our litigation document analyzer, which is formerly more known as Quick Check, to compare quotations and citations. And then AI jurisdictional surveys for times that you may work across state lines. All right. So in Westlaw Advantage, I'm going to walk through some of the key features. There are a lot of major steps forward from precision to advantage. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the core research tools, deep research with AI. So it's agentic AI. So it goes beyond the simple keyword searches. It plans and executes comprehensive research strategies. So you don't need to be perfect in your prompting. It will start to quote unquote say read your mind. It will use the agent will to use kind of intelligent searching to get deeper, more relevant results. Precision research is the prior to Westlaw Advantage, we came up and added attorney editors to tag cases with being able to filter by legal issue, by fact pattern, by cause of action, by motion type. So a lot more different filters so you can get better results in quicker time. Now, KeyCite Overruled in Part shows you exactly which parts and issues are no longer good law and which parts remain valid. So this is essential for not relying on all outdated legal precedent, but you can really hone in on what's been invalidated. And then, like I said, the jurisdictional surveys, you can quickly identify statutory law across all jurisdictions. It's really good for multi-state issues or if you're trying to compare statutes. And on the right-hand side, the two tools I'm going to talk to you about are litigation document analyzer. And like I said, this will help you understand and analyze legal documents better by comparing any citations or quotations and preventing hallucinations. And the KeyCite cited with, we're going to look at citing proximity and help you build stronger arguments by seeing cases that may be in the same string cite or in the same paragraph, other ways to find better case law. So the difference between, I've said, agentic, I want to give you a little bit of an overview about generative AI versus agentic AI. And so I'm going to talk about generative first. And so generative AI generates responses based solely on the parameters of the prompts you give it. So that is very important. You need to make sure you have your intent, your context, and give instructions. Whereas agentic AI is less heavy on the instructions. It can perform multiple step tasks, make decisions, and adapt to actions based on delineated goals, meaning you give more intent and context, and it will do more of the instructions by looking deeper into the issues, spotting sub-issues, and even counterpoints to expand on what may be possible, all based on your initial prompt. So it can plan and execute a research strategy across multiple resources. It can refine its approach, and you can pause it to refine its approach based on intermediate findings. And then it could suggest next steps if it may be ambiguous or incomplete information. So the difference between Westlaw Advantage and public LLMs like ChatGPT, right? Obviously, there's been a lot of problems in the news with attorneys using ChatGPT. We want to ensure and make sure that you know that Westlaw Advantage has strict guardrails in place in order to ensure it bases its answers only on Westlaw's closed universe. So the Westlaw content that you know and love is what we're looking at, right? It does not go out into the World Wide Web. So it will only respond by searching for a data set of real up-to-date information like primary law from Westlaw Advantage. So it's not going to make things up, and all the responses are extensively cited, which I'm going to demonstrate today. And the same ethical concerns apply as any AI tools that supervision and verification is required. We say trust and verify, right? So these tools are all meant to accelerate, to jumpstart, but not replace your own substantive research efforts and judgment, right? Still use your attorney brain. And then just real quickly, and I'm going to talk about this probably a couple times, when it comes to prompting, right? Each tool has its own set of tips and guidelines, but this is pretty basic general guidelines that you should use. Use plain language. So imagine you're talking to a colleague. Keep it clear, concise, and focused, right? So try to remove any ambiguity. Ask one question at a time, keep one single issue, and you don't need to do any prompt engineering. It really is all built in. So intent, context, that's what we need to focus on. And then refer to people, places by their role or title, not proper nouns. And we'll go over some more tips as we go along. What about studies demonstrating that both Lexis and Westlaw do hallucinate up to 33%? Well, Sherry, I have not seen those studies, but I'm going to show you what we provide and show you how it's integrated into Westlaw, and give you our, I guess, our privacy or security statement. And I'm not sure of those issues, but or those studies. When it comes to workflow, these are some of the tools on the right-hand side that I'm going to suggest you use. And these are some of the different stages of a case. So we're going to use deep research to really ask a question, a natural language question. And then some of the tools that I'm going to show you are also included when it comes to drafting. For example, you can upload your own brief or motion, and that's where it's going to look for quotes or citations. You definitely want to check all your citations before you file. So you want to make sure that there's no bad law in what you're filing. And then, of course, when you're comparing jurisdictions, you'll use our Jurisdictional Survey tool. Okay, so that's all I really have in the slide set. We do have a lot to cover, so I'm going to go off of this and stop sharing and go live. So while I'm going live, go ahead and go log into your Westlaw Advantage. And I'm going to have to see where mine is located here. So if I share my screen, there it is. I'm going to turn off my camera just for now because I am using a bunch of screens, so you don't have to get dizzy. All right. So when you log into your Westlaw Advantage, it should look something like this. And some of this may look a little bit familiar. For example, the global search bar. However, this big box in the middle, the Westlaw AI Deep Research, is new to Westlaw Advantage. So hopefully you're able to log in. And we find studies do show that you retain up to 70% more information when you type in chats as we go along. Now, I'm going to warn you, I did type in a lot of these prompts because it can take a second. So right off the bat, I'm just going to, instead of dangling that carrot in front of you, I'm going to talk to you about the different types of Westlaw deep research. All right. So whenever there's a circle I, it will give you a little bit more information. Bring it on screen when you're ready for attendees to see it. You can all see my screen, right? Thumbs up. Yep. Okay, cool. So this report type is going to give you a reminder of the two different report types that you can toggle back and forth, right? So the concise report type is going to be a little bit more of an overview. It's going to be, if you need an answer a little bit quicker, there is a shorter processing time. It can be anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. The expanded report type will give you a deeper analysis, and it's going to give arguments and authority on both sides. There is a longer processing time. We like to say it goes anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. It does, however, provide you with a lot more information and insight and analysis. So take the time to do it, and I will show you the difference in one of my searches today. So I did a couple different searches, and I did one that compared the concise report with the expanded, so you can see what that looks like. All right, so the very first one I did, and you can go ahead and put this on your screen, is this search right here. I'm going to put it into the chat. And so the very first one I did was, can a child file a legal action to reinstate a legal relationship with a biological parent? Right, so plain language question, typed it right into that main deep research box. And so I did the concise report for this one, and it comes up with a summary. It comes up with the statutory framework. Sorry, did someone say something? Okay. Okay, thank you, Sherry. I'll make a note of it. It comes up with, eligibility requirements. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing their first answer to our question, right? The report. I'm getting some statutory law. I'm getting some codes, right? I'm getting some commentary. And as I scroll down, often in the commentary, I'll get some secondary sources as well. Now I have this set to Washington. By the way, if you didn't notice that, I did have it set to Washington jurisdiction. So pretty basic report here in the concise report. And, you can see when you ran it and all that stuff. Now, the next tab here, it's an extra step and it takes another little bit of time, and I did it for you already. You're welcome. But this helps you look a little bit deeper. So this is going to help you verify the report and determine if additional law is important to your question. And so as we are talking about AI, and I appreciate you, Sherry, for bringing that up, the goal here is that you don't copy and paste any of this, that it is all used to jumpstart and accelerate your research. So before actually I even talk about the verify, I'm going to scroll all the way over to the research steps. Excuse me. And I'm going to show you that the deep research, the AI tool, will show you all the steps that it researched within Westlaw. So as an attorney, it is your job to look at the research steps and to make sure they are all legit. And if anything in here doesn't look accurate, then it's your bar card, your legal license to trust and verify any of these results. Okay. So I'm going to go back over to the verify tab, and I'm going to tell you these are the different assertions that were embedded in the report. And with each of these assertions, you'll see a statute, and then you'll see a supporting passage in that statute. And this one gives me 5 different supporting statutes to answer the question. So it's talking about reinstating parental rights, right? And how a child may petition and how the rights may be reinstated, and all under Washington law under this code section. Now you can further explore and look at the cases interpreting the statute. So I have the option here to open this up, and this is going to go into the statute as well as the notes of decisions. And so this is starting to now go from an AI natural language prompt to the statutory language to then primary case law. And I can start to build my strategy. Okay. So while I'm in this code, I can look at the context and analysis. I can see some of the citing references, 6 cases that cite this specific statute. And then I can look at the history, the versions, the bill drafts, etc. And so while I'm here, I'm going to talk a little bit about statutes. So the context and analysis overview, like it says, is going to give some law review and journal commentaries. If there are any jury instructions, that's what we will find in this context and analysis tab. Again, the citing references that will show you what else cites this specific statute. And the notes of decisions is where it opened up because it was telling you that assertion was based on these issues, right? So it's telling you validity under the rational basis test. This is, you know, how a juvenile can petition for reinstatement. And then you can have a permanency plan within 3 years of termination and, you know, read what it says, right? And then it will lead me to some case law. Okay. The other thing to look at when we're looking at statutes is the history tab. And this is really going to dig even deeper into the history of this specific statute. So I can see all notes and history notes based on this version. I can also see that there are 6 versions here. And so one of the things you may want to do is compare the most recent version with what came before it. So I can see the current version went into effect in 2018. Well, maybe I want to compare that to the version prior and see what changed. So if I click both of those compare on the far right side, it will compare the 2 versions. And essentially it's laying them on top of each other. So I click compare and I'll be able to see if there's been any deleted or added text. Right? So supervising agency was removed when they're talking about a juvenile being able to reinstate parental rights. Yes, I agree. This is definitely one of the most popular features, looking at comparing the different versions. And this is comparing, I was comparing now the second most prior version to the third, and you can see that that's when they talked about or added this permanency plan, right? So pretty cool. And while I'm here, anytime there's these little stars, I can use this AI tool, means it's an AI tool, to summarize the comparison. And so this is going to tell me with AI what actually changed between these 2 versions. But it might take a minute, so I'm not sure I'm going to wait for it. Oh, there we go. Where did it go? There it is. I moved my cursor and it moved. Yeah, oftentimes there'll be some stars, and that's going to say that it's an AI, that it's using AI. And I'll point out a couple areas where that comes up. Okay. So I talked about this statute. I talked about kind of some of the things to look at when we're looking at statutes. Oftentimes, that's why I say I never go in any sort of order, because I oftentimes get a little derailed. Another thing you can look at when you're looking at statutes is the table of contents, and this will show you what is before and after the particular statute that you're in. And so we're in 13.34.215, right? And we can see the sections before and after it. Versus the outline, which shows you the section outline. So it'll show you the 1, 2, 3s, the ABCs, etc. Yes, absolutely. I just tend to, yes, Jennifer, you do not need to go through the AI portal. If you know exactly what statute you're going to, you can just type that right into the global search bar. Okay. So we were in the Verify tab, and I went on a whole thing looking at statutes, trying to find cases that interpret this statute, right? So citing references, which is why it took me specifically to that. And then I also can look at cases with similar language. And the parallel search is essentially searching conceptually similar sentences to what I put in my prompt, right? So my prompt said, can a child file legal action to reinstate a legal relationship with the biological parent? This is going to pull up some cases. It's called parallel search. This is going to pull up some cases that use synonyms, or like this says parent-child relationship, existence or non-existence of a relationship, right? So this is going to suggest other synonyms or other words that you may not have put exactly into the prompt. And so that's all coming up when we were looking at the Verify tab. Now you can also go to the Enhance tab, and the Enhance tab, again, you'll see these stars, is the AI tool suggesting other questions you can answer to focus or narrow your report, right? So it's going to generate a more tailored report if you give more information. It also will give you an option to ask any follow-up questions about this report. And it will give you the sources. So these are the sources, cases, statutes, etc., that were in your answer. Okay. Now, I also ran the expanded report of that. So that was just the concise report. And you can see the issues or the sections it gave me. Now, the expanded report took a little bit longer. And here you can start to see if there is authority or arguments on both sides. You can also see there are more in-depth sections, right? So you're now looking at who may petition, conditional reinstatement, practical implications, recent developments, right? So it gives you a little bit more information. It probably took another couple minutes to run this, because it does give you a little bit more information. Same thing, I can go to the Verify tab. Oh, I thought I had verified it. We'll let that run. And then I can also enhance my report. I have suggested, an option to ask follow-up questions. And I have, instead of 9 sources, I now have 14 sources because it did a more in-depth. And also, finally, to make sure the tool is doing the research that you would do or maybe not do, I can look at all my research steps. All right, I'm going to pause and I'm going to look at Sherry's question. Does it matter on the quantity of authority there is to answer your question? My report was not instant. I ran it before class. I mentioned that at the beginning. I ran it before class, so you didn't have to wait. The concise report is usually about 3 to 5 minutes. And the expanded report, I would say, is about 5 to 10. I think it depends on the complexity of your question. Yeah, I ran these searches ahead of class, so we didn't have to waste any time and sit around in silence. All right. So a really important thing to look at is these research steps, right? And that's going to be helpful both for you in your legal research, but also in your specific question and your deep research to make sure they're covering, the AI is doing what you want it to, and that it's covering all areas. And if there is something missing, that's where you would go to enhance by getting more specific or asking follow-up questions. Okay. So I usually would give the intro and say, I understand you talk about termination or dependency of parental rights, involuntary commitment and mental health issues. So the next one I'm going to show you is more about Civil Commitment and Involuntary Treatment Act. And so I did run this as well. And so the question I asked was, what is the standard of proof for civil commitment under the ITA? Right? And you'll see at the bottom here, I ran it as an expanded report. And so we're going to get more information, right? We're going to look at an answer to the question, but we're also going to see the petitioner's burden. We're going to look at a little bit more of a tiered framework and more practical implications, right, than the concise report would provide, because it did take a little bit longer to run. And the same thing when I look at the Verify tab. So now I'm going to find all the different assertions so that you can verify the report and determine if additional law is important for your question. So it will tell you, okay, this is the code section now that the ITA is where the ITA is codified. And then it's going to give you the supporting passages within the code section for this assertion. And like I showed you before, you'll find other cases that'll lead you to the statute, as well as you can do some parallel searching. So again, if you want to give more information, the AI has created some additional questions to help narrow and tailor your report. You have the option to ask follow-up questions based on your specific information. And then you can see the sources that it has listed if you want to dig deeper into it. Always remember, trust and verify the research steps. So now I'm going to go into a case law and talk to you a little bit about cases. These are all old cases, but that's okay, because what I want to show you a little bit about case law is some of the KeyCite tags or flags and how to make sure you're not citing bad law. All right. So anytime I see a flag, I really want to make sure I look and see where it's been negatively treated. So I can look at the negative treatment tab. I can see where there's been a case that's declined to extend or distinguished by. And as I scroll over to the right, it gives me a kind of note that this is the most negative case. And I can see here it was discussed in a depth of 3 green bars out of 4. Okay, so pretty heavily discussed. Now we have the option to look at exactly what issue that it was declined to extend, and that is this head note. And so if I click on this, this is going to go into head note 12 of the case we're in, LaBelle, and it's going to show me the exact issue in mental health, right, that that case declined to extend. Now, when I'm here, I can do a bunch more things to find more cases that might be on point. One of the things I can do is I can look at this key number, and this key number is going to take me to more cases within our key number system. The key number system is essentially like a card catalog system. So you can see now when I click on it, I'm under mental health, mentally disordered, custody and care, admission, evidence, waste, sufficiency in particular cases. So as I'm going in my research and I want to find something more recent, right, because LaBelle was 1984, this is going to be very helpful because it's going to give me more recent cases. So if I decide I like some of these, I can go ahead and click on them. They all seem like the same. There's duplicates. I think we need to work on that. But if I like this case, I can go ahead and click on this folder up on the right, and I can save it into a research folder and come back and look at it later. So if I'm going quickly through my research, I might want to save stuff to folders, and I'll show you where those are located, kind of at the end of the day when you want to look and see your organization, and maybe you want to take a break and come back to it. So the West key number system, very kind of old school, but this is where, if I click on it, you can start your searching if you wanted to, just by all of the different topics or issues in Westlaw. And you can always just kind of click on one of them and go narrower and narrower, and that will lead you to all the cases on that specific issue. Are there any questions so far? Okay, so I will talk a little bit specifically about statutes because that was a good question. I think I've covered deep research enough. If you do have a specific statute or case you want to find, you can just throw it right into this global search bar. So if I wanted to just go right to RCW 71.05, right, I can do that and I can search. And it'll bring it right up. And it also gives me options to look directly at the legislative intent. So I'm going to go, I want to just go right into, I'll go into this top one. So this allows me to see the legislative intent on this 7105, right, which was the very first behavioral health disorder statute that we looked at. And one of the other things I want to make sure I note for you guys is to look at the currentness. And so this click on currentness will take you and show you, make sure that it's you're looking at the most current version. I can go back to the top, this bottom right button, and that will take me back to the top. Now, also under the history tab, I showed you how to compare versions, but I didn't show you some of the additional legislative history. So I have the option to look at legislative history materials, and these are going to show me all the reports and voting records that went into this current version. So I see some Senate bills and some reports. And I can also look at it graphically. So I think there were 4 versions of this statute, and I can see by color coding when each of these versions was in effect. So if I want to say, okay, this current version, here is the public, here's the statute we're looking at. I can also see this one has more information, the bill drafts that went into a specific version. So I can start to see the legislative intent if I wanted to get even deeper. These are all live links. And then as a reminder, the notes and decisions, these are all editorial notes. And so these will be helpful because these are other attorneys pulling out from this specific statute, case law, and leading you to other cases by key number, right? And by citing references. Okay. If I want to go home, I always just click on the top left, Westlaw Advantage, and that will take me home. Now, another thing I will show you when it comes to statutes, I can go under content types and I can click under statutes. And then I have the option to go into Washington and I'll be able to see all the statutes and court rules, right? So this may be something you want to add to your favorites. And again, I'll show you where to find that at the end too. We also talked about parallel search. So without going all into deep research, you can do a parallel search just by going all the way to the right of the global search bar and clicking on parallel search and typing your search right into this chat box. Or search, I should say search bar. And this will give you, again, the synonyms. You can also go old school in the advanced search and search terms and connectors or Boolean searches. Really good sanity check at the end of the day. Okay. I covered quite a bit. I'm going to talk about precision research, then I'm going to go into some of our more advanced research tools. So the precision research, like I said, this came out with Westlaw Precision a few years ago, and this allows you to search by the precision attributes, right? So now you can search by legal issue, by fact pattern, by material facts, cause of action, motion type, outcome, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So we have precision search to look for highly relevant cases a lot quicker. All right. So I click on this Start Precision Search tab, and I'm going to show you what comes up. All right. So you can type in some search terms here, but I'm going to show you how to search by attribute. So here you can start to narrow down maybe what area of law you want to be in. Right? So maybe you want to be in, what do I want to say? Personal injury. Okay. And then maybe you want to search different causes of action. Let's say defective products. Oops, I can type. Oh my gosh. Right, and you'll see we narrowed down now to 15 cases that all are specific to the area of law I put in, personal injury, and the fact pattern of unsafe or defective product type. And then when the cases show up, we have what's called these blue browse boxes, and this shows you the material facts. It gives it a really easy, readable way to scroll through and look at cases I may find relevant. Now I can further filter by clicking over here on these filters and filter specific legal issues, deeper into fact patterns. If I maybe want to look at there's been bodily harm, right? Cause of action. And then I can start to get a little bit more narrow in my research. Okay, so prior to precision, it was a lot harder to search by fact pattern or material facts, right? So this allows us to really hone in on these specific categories. Okay. All right, so the last two more advanced research tools I'm going to show you, I have already run as well, and those are the Litigation Document Analyzer and the Jurisdictional Surveys. All right, so the Jurisdictional Surveys, both of which, you scroll down in your homepage and you'll see these key features. So we talked about deep research. I'm going to go to Jurisdictional Surveys first, and this allows you to identify and compare statutes, regulations, cases between state lines. And so I ran a search, and I just ran this, what are the evidentiary standards and prosecutorial obligations for charging a defendant with felony domestic violence? And it gives you the option of which, here, when I open it up, I'll show you. So if I click in there, I'll show you what it looks like first, right? So that's where I put the question. And then it gives you the option to select the jurisdictions that you want to compare. So I did Washington, Oregon, and in California. And then it runs the survey, and it takes a few minutes. So again, I did this in advance. And then it shows you the different state statutes and regulations to my question. So very helpful, again, if you're working across state lines. It gives you some case law as well, right? And maybe I want to only do Oregon, look at only Oregon or only Washington. Pretty self-explanatory, but also our customers find it very helpful. All right. I got to close out some of these tabs. The final thing I'm going to show you is the litigation document analyzer. Now, if you recall or used Quick Check before in Westlaw Edge, it is similar, right? There are a couple added features. So I have the option to go to upload a brief or memo, and I can do it in a couple different ways. So the Analyze Your Work tab is going to be more of a broad overview. It's going to find citations and quotations. The Analyze Opponent's Work is going to be a little bit more comprehensive, and it's going to identify more weaknesses or defenses, and it's going to find counter arguments. Now, you can also run this with a complaint. So it will extract claims, events, key facts, give you some possible affirmative defenses. And then the judicial analysis was similar in Quick Check, where you would run both parties, often used by judges or mediators. All right, so I did a brief, and I did the Analyze an Opponent's Work just to show you for demo. And here is what comes up. So the initial summary, again, these little stars, this is telling me that AI did this, right? The initial summary is here. So it's summarizing the brief that I uploaded. Now, just as a reminder, because I didn't wait for it to run and show all the steps, what you uploaded is only used to kind of collect, and it's encrypted. And at the very end, it's always deleted from our system. So anything you upload is not used to train the LLM. It doesn't go anywhere else. It's really used to create this report, and then it is deleted from our system. So it's giving a summary of the brief that I uploaded. And then as I scroll down, it's going to show me arguments, any related arguments. So I can start to look at this very specifically, and then related defenses. So this will be very helpful based on whether it's your brief or your opposing counsel's brief to start to think, okay, do I want to argue this, or is this a good counter argument based on what I uploaded? And then, of course, it gives you some support. So it's going to give you some case law that may be helpful to your case. Okay. Also, because your work, okay, so when you first go into Litigation Document Analyzer, Analyze Your Work is just a one-sided review. Analyzing your opponent's work will give you both sides. So it's going to give you a more comprehensive report. Yeah, we're not using CoCounsel. We are in Westlaw Advantage, George. Jennifer, did you understand my answer? Okay. So the next tab, after we look at kind of the summary and the overview, the next tab is the warnings for the cited authority. So you'll see that I have five authority citations. It's going to show me those all right here. So 3 cases and 2 statutes. And as I scroll down, I can see that there are some flags. And so like we talked about before, I want to make sure that I'm not citing any bad law. So I want to look at any cases or statutes that have flags and make sure it's not bad law. Now, this brief is older, so there are going to be some flags. I use this for demo purposes just for that reason. It's also going to, when I go to the language analysis, oh, this is not giving me any citations. This will compare if you have citations in your brief. Again, because we're integrated in Westlaw, it will go into the Westlaw content and compare citations. I don't have any citations in this one, so that's not pulling up, but it will show you a side-by-side. It will give me a table of authorities of all of the cited authorities I have in here. Yeah, so you're right, Jennifer. We recommend you use Analyze Opponent's Work for yours and your opponents, because then you will get a good idea of both sides and counter arguments. That is a good question, and I usually do say that. We recommend you do analyze opposing to get both sides. And then finally, the recommendations tab is going to give you some recommendations based on what you uploaded. Okay, so this is going to be very helpful, whether it's yours or opposing counsel's brief. If there's any contrary authority, it may recommend contrary authority. It may recommend some other cases of the same motion type, some more frequently cited or higher court cases or more recent cases. So right now it's recommending five cases in this issue. It also will give you additional case recommendations. And again, this is just going into Westlaw and pulling out other recommended cases for you to look at. And here you can also, of course, filter or narrow it down by jurisdiction or date, etc. Now, if I ever get lost here, you'll see in the bottom right, it has the report and the brief that I uploaded. Any other questions on Litigation Document Analyzer? So yes, we recommend you run analyze opposing counsel's work. We also recommend you run this at the beginning of your drafting, and then for sure when you are done before you submit to the court or to opposing counsel, to really make sure you have gotten rid of or checked all of the negative treatment flags, KeyCite flags. Okay. I think I've gone over everything I promised I would. So these last few minutes, I'm just going to talk about how to keep your information or, all of your research in organized fashion, right? So that's where the folders would be. If you put anything into research folders, that's where it will be. Now you can also look at this history tab, and this is going to be helpful because you can view every click you did today. I did a lot of clicks today. And it will give you it in a list view, right? It'll also show in a graphical view. So if you go to lunch and you come back and you're like, where was I? Where did I spend a lot of time? Right? I can see here I spent a lot of time here. It's not letting me do that. But it can also show me where I went into KeyCite and the key number system, right? It gives me a little bit of a timestamp. You probably will spend more time than I did flying through some of these examples. And then finally, I do have the option to click in here. I will show you if you want to set up an alert and you go into a statute, for example, this little alert bell over here on the right, it says create KeyCite alert entry. This allows you to stay up to date on the specific citation that you're creating an alert for. So it defaults right here when I say click alert. And so I want to just call this, what was I looking at? Parental rights. And then I can select the content that I want to stay up to date on. So anytime there's a citing reference to the statute, I can also include any history. And then I can customize it to come to my email, my colleague's email, etc., in either a Word or PDF format. And then I can schedule how often I want it to update me. So if it's something I'm working on pretty actively, I may want continuous updates anytime there is a citing reference. Or I can set it to monthly if I don't want it email updates all the time. I'm not going to save this because I don't actually want email updates all the time on this statute. So those notifications will be found in this tab, Notifications, Alerts. And you can always go in and revise or edit any alerts you have set up. And then finally, the My Links is where you will find if you've created any favorites. So instead of having to click content types, statutes, Washington, you could just go here and your favorites will be right there. Okay, I'm running out of tab space. So I will show you this box that keeps popping up is because I have a research folder and it's telling me anytime there are, it's giving me research recommendations based on what I have saved in a research folder. Okie dokie. I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to go to my resources, but if you have any questions, I want you to please shout them out or put them in the chat as I wrap up, please. So just the last few slides I have, I'm going to bring on the screen. And these last few slides are going to talk about 1-800-Westlaw, which is our IT tech support line, as well as 1-800-REF attorney, REFATTY, which is our phone a friend. That's where you can go if you have any questions, some research questions. The QR code, and I'll also put it in the link in the chat, is very helpful for us to make sure I'm covering all the information you want. For some reason, it didn't give me a live link, so let's try that again. Copy link. And if you have any further questions, my email is also in the chat. Please don't hesitate. I do do one-on-one sessions. And as you can see on the slide, we have a bunch of other ways to continue your research. So our legal learning hub is very helpful. You can pretty much research anything you want. We have sessions on just prompting. We also have self-paced videos and webinars, as well as live online classes that you can sign up and get access to. And we are really building up our live online class schedule. So that is all I have for you. I can stay on for another minute or two. If you do have any questions, if you're too shy, shoot it in the chat or shoot me an email. And I wish you a really happy researching and a really wonderful rest of your Tuesday.